Have you ever stopped to truly listen to the noise inside your own mind? Not just the fleeting thoughts, but the persistent, grinding engine of problems, solutions, and anxieties that seems to run from the moment we wake until the moment we fall asleep. I want to ask you a question, and it's a question that came to me as I was walking here. Is it possible for us to ask a question or to face any problem from a state of mind that is truly whole? Can we look at the enormous, complex web of our lives with a brain that is holistic, one that perceives the entire human problem, not just one fractured piece of it? I ask this because I observe, and perhaps you observe this in yourself too, that we are not whole human beings. We are, as a matter of fact, profoundly fragmented, broken up into dozens of contradictory pieces. You have your business self, which must be competitive, perhaps ruthless, and then you have your family self, which you try to make loving or kind. You have your religious life in a neat little box for one day of the week, your sexual life in another, and your online persona, your social media self in yet another, curated and polished for public view. Each fragment has its own motive, its own desires, its own fears, and these fragments are constantly at war with each other. We are not integrated, and because we are fragmented, we look at the totality of life from one of these specific broken off points of view, from a pre-existing conclusion, or through the lens of some ideology or idealistic concept we have picked up along the way. But these are they not, just fragmented outlooks on life? So I'm asking you, as we talk this over together, can we meet each other in this? Can we face a problem, any problem, from a wholly different outlook that is not fragmented at all? I hope you don't mind me using that word, holistic. Though it is often used as a scientific or medical term, I am using it in its simplest sense to mean whole, complete, undivided. Is it possible to approach life from a point of total integration, a genuine integrity, and then ask our questions? It becomes rather interesting if we go into this together. If we can acknowledge the fact that we are fragmented, that we are broken up, divided in ourselves, constantly contradictory, opposing one desire against another, being aware of all that, could we then face a problem from a different focus entirely? Let's start with a more basic question. Why do we have problems? I don't mean the external challenges of survival, but the deep psychological problems that plague us. We have so many, don't we? Political, religious, economic, sexual, problems of relationship, problems of loneliness, problems of fear, problems of meaning. We are drowning in a sea of multiple overlapping problems. And it seems that in a society that becomes ever more sophisticated, ever more complex, with overpopulation, terrible governments, and technological disruption, the problems only increase. And have you noticed that in the very resolution of one problem, we seem to invariably create several new ones? We solve an energy crisis by creating a new kind of pollution. We solve the problem of loneliness with social media, which then creates profound new forms of isolation and anxiety. Why does this happen? The answer we might find is going to awaken similar related problems, but we must ask, why do we have problems at all? And more importantly, Is it possible to meet a problem with a brain that is not already conditioned to solve it? Now, you may not understand what I mean by that. Let's look at it together. We go to school when we are very young, perhaps 5 or 7 years old, and from the first day, children are faced with a problem, a mathematical problem, the problem of how to write, how to read, how to learn a formula. It becomes a problem to be solved. So, from the very beginning of our lives, our brain is meticulously conditioned to the task of solving problems. This is a fact, isn't it? This isn't some fantastic theory I'm proposing. This is your life. From there, you go on to college, and again, you are faced with more and more complex problems, then university, then the job, the career, the functions, the vocations. It is problem after problem after problem. Our brain, your brain, is absolutely full of problems. It has become a machine that does one thing: it seeks solutions. Because we have a brain that is conditioned to solve problems, we are always seeking a solution to problems. Is this clear? Are we together in this observation? Now, here is the real question I want to put to you. How can the brain, your brain, truly solve any deep human problem if it is not free from the entire pattern of problems itself? This is a rather interesting thing to consider, so please let's go into it carefully. Our brains are conditioned from childhood to the resolution of problems to finding the solution. And because the brain is so conditioned, it is always seeking that solution, that answer, that escape. And therefore, it is never, ever understanding the problem itself. It is only concerned with the solution to the problem. Are we together in this? Just a little bit. So I ask you, and I am asking you, sirs and ladies, quite directly, is it possible to have a brain that is not conditioned to problems? Your brain right now is conditioned to the solution of problems, and yet we have never actually solved our fundamental human problems, have we? They are increasing more and more and more. Why? Is it because a conditioned brain, a brain that is itself embedded in the very structure of problems, can never, by its very nature, solve them? Have I put the question clearly? Is it possible to have a brain that is not conditioned to the solution of problems, but rather to the understanding of problems? Don't you see that there is a profound difference between the search for a solution and the act of understanding? In the simple, direct, and total understanding of the problem, the solution may very well lie in the problem itself, not away from it. The answer is not separate from the question. The answer is in the complete unfolding of the question. But we are always looking away from the problem toward a future answer, a future fix, a hope. And so we never stay with the problem. We never look at it. Let's take a very ordinary and tragic example of this. Human beings have never stopped wars. Since we first appeared on this earth, we have had wars, and we have never ever solved the problem of war. Instead of understanding the root of war, we have simply decided to reorganize how to kill other human beings more efficiently, more terribly. We invent new bombs, new drones, new technologies of destruction. And this reorganization, this refinement of murder, we actually dare to call progress. This is not a joke, this is not a cynical statement, it is a fact of our history. We move from one organization to another, hoping to solve the problem externally. We had the League of Nations, which failed, and now we have the United Nations. And yet wars go on every single day. We are just moving from one form of organization to another, hoping thereby to solve problems, but we are only multiplying them and changing their form. We never stop wars. Why? Because we never look at the cause of war. And what is the cause of war? It is nationalism, is it not? It is the economic division of our resources versus your resources. It is the tribal, local division, the linguistic, racial, religious, economic, and cultural divisions that we cherish. All these divisions are the cause of war because they divide man from man. We seem to forget the most obvious fact that we are all human beings. We all suffer. We all feel pain. We all experience profound anxiety, moments of joy, boredom, the ache of loneliness, and the shadow of despair. This is the common ground. This is the reality. But we don't tackle that. We don't look at this fundamental shared consciousness of humanity. Instead, we want to solve the problems that seem to have external causes. We want to draw a new border, sign a new treaty, or elect a new leader, believing that will solve the problem. And this division is not just out there between nations. It is in here, in us. The consciousness that identifies itself as American or Chinese or Russian or British, or as a Christian or a Muslim or a Hindu, is the very same consciousness that feels separate, that feels the need to protect itself, to be secure in its identity, and therefore it is in a constant state of fear and aggression towards the other. Look at our modern world. Look at the internet, the so-called social media. It is a battlefield of tribes, is it not? We are fragmented into our political echo chambers, our ideological bubbles, and we launch verbal wars against anyone who belongs to the other tribe. This is the exact same psychological process that, when given armies and bombs, leads to physical war. The problem is the division in the human mind itself, the may and the not may, the us and the them. So we are asking, can the brain, your brain, recognizing and seeing clearly that it has been conditioned from childhood to the solution of problems, be free of that conditioning? And then, from that state of freedom, face the problem. Will you do it? That is the real question. It's not a rhetorical one. Can you be conscious, be aware that your brain, that you as a human being, have been struggling from the beginning of your life with problems, always trying to find the right answer to them? And can you see the truth that the right answer, the true resolution, can only come when we recognize that the brain is conditioned, and that as long as that brain is conditioned to solving problems, we will never find the right answer. Is this clear? Now, the crucial point is this. Do I recognize this as a fact or only as an idea? There is a world of difference between the idea and the fact. You hear this statement from me, and from that statement, you might draw a conclusion. You might say, yes, quite right. This is so. And from that statement, you abstract an idea of it, and then you begin to pursue the idea. The idea becomes, I must be free of this conditioning. This I must be free is now just another goal, another problem, another abstract explanation. It is not the fact. The fact, the living reality, is simply that my brain is conditioned to solve problems. That is the fact. The idea that I should be free of this conditioning is a non-fact. It's an escape from the fact. Can you stay with the fact and not move away from it into some abstract explanation of future hope? Because as long as that condition exists, the multiplication of problems will go on, the reorganization of problems will go on. Changing from one capitalist society to a totalitarian society, or from one political party to another, or from one belief system to another, will always and inevitably bring about enormous new problems. So the only question that matters is, can you and I be free of the brain that is conditioned? And this freedom doesn't come from trying to be free. It comes from being aware of the conditioning, seeing the depth of it, the truth of it, the logic and the sanity of seeing it clearly and not moving an inch away from that observation. If you cannot get on with your wife or your husband or your partner, if there are quarrels, contention, all the misery and conflict of it, what do? We seek a solution. The solution is divorce. So one divorces, and then one chooses another person. And if one has the money and the energy, one keeps on repeating this pattern. This is the game that is going on all over the world on a small or a bigger scale. But the problem was never divorce or all the legal and emotional complications of the relationship. The problem is that we have never stopped to understand the depth and meaning of relationship itself. Relationship, as we have pointed out, is one of the most important, most vital things in life. I don't mean the emotional expressions of it, the tantrums, the jealousies, the neuroticism of relationship, but the profound significance, the depth of what it means to be related to another. We never ask that question. We just want to solve the problem of the relationship. And so, of course, we never solve it. We just exchange partners, exchange problems. This is why the psychiatrists, the psychotherapists, the marriage counselors are multiplying in the world like mushrooms. And they are not solving the deep, fundamental problems of humanity. They are merely helping us to adjust to the fragmented, conflicting, and sorrowful society we have created. So, we must consider together, not as a problem to be solved, but as a vast field to be explored. What is the art of living? You see, when I talk about the conditioned brain, you might be asking, are you saying that if we have a system, a method, or a pattern for solving problems, then every time we approach a problem, it is the system that is operating and not our actual understanding of the problem? Yes, that is precisely it. The system is the conditioned brain. The pattern is the prison. Whether it is a political system, a religious dogma, a psychological technique, or your own accumulated pattern of personal experience, the moment you approach a problem through that system, you are blinded. You are only seeing the problem through the lens of the past, and therefore you are incapable of seeing it as it is, fresh, new in this very moment. This brings us back to the central question, which is perhaps the only question that matters. What is the true art of living? We have the art of poetry, the art of painting, the art of architecture, the art of cooking, which is now so celebrated, and countless other skills we call arts. But we have never, it seems, asked ourselves what is the greatest art of all, which is the art of living itself. Is there such an art? Or is our life all just chance, a biological accident, a mere product of our genes and our environment, a chaotic and painful journey from birth to death? Now, if I were to answer that question for you, if I were to give you a definition, what would you do? Would you not make a problem of it? You would turn my answer into a new system. You would say, I must achieve that, and you would begin to strive, to imitate, to conform to the pattern I have laid down. And in that very moment, the art is thrown out of the window. The art is not in the conclusion, it is in the discovery. So, let's look at it together to find out for ourselves what is this art of living. I mean art in the widest and deepest sense of that word, not just the skill of painting or the contents of a museum, but the quality of a life that is in itself a supreme creation. If you are asked that question, what is your answer? Not a calculated answer you have read in a book, not a personal, emotional, or romantic answer, all of which are quite meaningless. If I answer that question emotionally, oh, the art of living is the highest spiritual aspiration, it is sheer nonsense. If I answer it intellectually, the art of living is the most exalted intellectual activity of a holistic outlook. That sounds excellent, but factually it isn't true, because an intellectual concept is just another fragment. So, what is the art of living? Surely it must be to live a life without conflict whatsoever, a brain that is in conflict all the time, a mind that is constantly having problems, this tremendous and exhausting self-concern. Such a brain, such a mind must inevitably be limited, small, and petty. If one is always thinking about oneself, how can I find peace? How can I meditate properly? Will I become enlightened? What do they think of me? Then your very meditation, your very search for God or truth is just another form of self-centeredness. It is the me seeking to aggrandize itself, to become something, to gain security. Therefore, the art of living, it appears, is to live without this me, this self at the center, and therefore to live without conflict. Now, when you hear this, you immediately ask, is that possible at all? We are caught, are we not, in this endless corridor of dualities, wanting one thing and then desiring the opposite. We want to be safe, but we crave adventure. We want to be loved, but we are full of hate and jealousy. We want peace, but our whole life is a battle. This is the duality that is us. And the root of this division, the root of all conflict, is this self-centeredness. As long as that self-centeredness exists, there must be conflict. Because self-centeredness is limitation. The me is a boundary. The me is a center of desire, of fear, of memory. And by its very nature, it separates itself from you, from the world. and is therefore in a constant state of friction. And you listen to all these. You are listening to me now, perhaps nodding, perhaps agreeing intellectually. But when this is over, you will carry on just as before, won't you? You will go back to the conflict, to the anxiety, to the me. And you will say, but what you are talking about is not possible in modern society. One must be self-centered, at least a little bit, just to survive. You have to look out for number one, right? You have to build your personal brand. You have to accumulate your followers. You have to protect your job, your family, your property. This is the normal state of human beings, apparently. But I ask you, have you ever tried, have you ever actually done it, to live without self-centeredness for one day? Not as a theory, not as an ideal, but as an actual fact. Have you tried to live just for 1 hour without a single thought about yourself? Without thinking about your achievements, your failures, your looks, your anxieties, your pleasures, your future, your past, your spiritual progress, just for 1 hour. You haven't committed to anything. You can go back to your selfishness and your self-centeredness at the end of it. Nobody is going to stop you. But just do it for 1 hour and see what happens. When you are no longer the center of your own universe, when the me with its petty demands and its terrible fears is not occupying the whole stage, you will find something extraordinary. You will find it gives you tremendous, astonishing energy. The self, the me, is a terrible drain on our energy, all its conflicts, its fears, its striving, is a colossal waste of life. And when that is not there, that energy is liberated. And with that energy comes a great sense of passion. I do not mean lust or mere sensory excitement, but a profound, burning passion to pursue something to the very end, to understand life, to see what is true, absolutely. The art of living then begins with the ending of the me. I hope this script is helpful. Please like this video if you found this reflection valuable, and subscribe to the channel for more explorations into the nature of our mind.